Here I'm going to explore a slightly more advanced form using the pinch technique. You may have wondered how to get a form like this. It's larger in the middle than it is on the top with a pinch pot. And cutting gussets is one way, but it takes quite a while and quite a bit of work putting those all together. You can also use coils to do this, which is quite a bit of work as well, but very effective. Or you can take a couple of pinch pots and put them together. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take a block of clay and I'm going to pull some pieces out of it, a little bit for the foot, and then I'm going to take a couple more pieces out of here. I want two pieces that are about the same size, so I'm going to sort of gauge them, wad them up, look at them, decide if I need to put a little bit more clay into the other, and then I'm going to knead them together into two balls. If I start with balls that are about the same size, I'll get two pinch pots that are about the same size. I'm going to roll them smooth on the outside, or as smooth as I can get them. And when I have two that are about the same size, I'm going to make a pinch pot out of one of them to start with, and I'm going to roll it round and round between my fingers, starting at the bottom and sort of spiraling up as I go. I'm trying to make a half dome, and it's going to be relatively smooth on the inside when I do that. It might be a little lumpy for my fingers on the outside, but I can smooth most of that out as I go. Once I have one, and I've measured it to about the width of my finger on the edges, I'm going to then pick up another one, and I'm going to do the same thing. And since I started with two pieces of clay about the same size, I should end up with two similar sized pinch pots. And I will compare them together to see if they fit, and one will usually be a little bit smaller, and I need to work on that for a moment until they're the same size. And then I'm going to flatten some edges, and I'm going to score and slip them together. If I have a little bit of extra on the inside, I'm going to carve that off as I go. It just makes it easier on me later on. But if I score all the way around on one, and then score all the way around on the other, and then slip them together along the score lines, I'll end up with a hollow ball. It has a big air pocket in the middle. Now, I couldn't put that directly in the kiln. I would have to make sure that the air can get out, but I'm going to work this enough that I will be putting holes in it, or at least one big one. So once I get slip all over it, I put the two halves together, and then I start blending the edge when I can get it together. Once I've blended the edge quite a bit, then I'll probably run a scoring tool over it several times, and then a sponge with some slip in it, and do that over and over again, and eventually I will get a smooth ball on the outside with a large hollow space inside that I can work with. So here I have a big hollow ball. Now, of course, I'm going to do some more work on it, and it rolls quite a bit, so I'm going to end up putting a foot on it after I've checked its size, and I would normally put a hole in it someplace along the line, but if I leave it hollow like this, I can work on the outside of it for a little bit, and the air inside pushing against the outside can't get out, and it keeps it rounder that way. So I'm going to work on it for a while it's just round. And I'm going to make a coil base to start with, just something that's nice and stable for it to sit on, and I have to score and slip that in place. Every time I have two different pieces of clay that I'm putting together, they have to be scored and slipped so that the slip squirts out the sides. And then I think I'm going to put a couple of stabilizing feet on the bottom to make it look sort of like a cauldron. So I have some pieces of clay that are all about the same size, and I roll them into a ball, and I'm going to put some feet down here on the bottom. Now that they're all scored and slipped in place, I have a nice base that will keep it from wobbling around. And I'm going to put a hole in the top now, and I just sort of drill it through there with my clay knife, and then I'm going to cut around that. The first hole was just to sort of center it, and then I have this hole here, and I put water on my finger, or I can put it on a tool, and it makes it slide over the surface and gets everything smooth as I'm doing it. I try to keep my fingers wet with slippy water, and eventually I can work it out and get that larger and larger, and it's going to roll a little bit. But only if I put more water on it can I get it to roll, because it needs to be very plasticky and malleable to do that. Once I have enough clay built up on the outside, I'm going to look on the inside for that seam, and I'm going to eventually try to smooth it out too. Now you're going to notice that I'm going to press a lot of clay against the stick. I keep the stick wet as I do that. A dry stick will often grab the clay, but if I can get some slip on that stick, I can use the stick to form the outside more effectively sometimes than my fingers, especially if I want a nice smooth surface. And then I'm going to find that seam in there, and I'm going to get some moisture on my thumb and go in there and smooth that seam out so that we don't see it later. I might have to use a stick too. This hole in the top is not big enough for me to get my hand in, and that's what makes it difficult to form this sort of shape from just one piece. While it's still wet, I'm going to trim it up a bit. I'm going to run the stick across it. I'm going to try to smooth it up here. Then I'm going to let it dry a little bit before I actually get more modeling going here. Once it gets leather hard, I can actually do something with it. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to change those feet. I'm not liking the way they look. They're a little lumpy. But it's basically this shape, larger in the middle, smaller on the top, and something that you couldn't get your hand into if you tried.